All right, this is who should Georgia legitimately push for the Heisman? Now, we're not trying to talk all day here, Matt, but if there's one player you're going with, who is that person from Georgia's team?
The first guy to come to mind is Carson Beck. I think he's going to have a very good year. But as far as I think Brock Bowers deserves it, and I think one of the reasons Herschel won it in '80 was probably the best player in college football. I wasn't alive then, but I think a lot of it had to do with what he had done previously, and everyone said, okay, now is his time. He deserves it. Brock Bowers could be the best player in college football, could be the greatest tight end in college football history, and I think he's the guy that I think deserves all the credit in the world. Be a guy that is looked at as a Heisman candidate and the best player in college football.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be Carson Beck for me, or whoever's starting on the center, which I think it'll be Carson Beck. I just for Bauer, he's gonna have to put up just ridiculous numbers, and I don't think that they play that way. I see a lot of blowouts on their schedule, which means Brock Bowers is not in the fourth quarter, maybe not in the second half of the third quarter in some of these games. I mean, he's gonna have to get more carries than he got last year, right? And I think he was like every third carry he got last season, I think it was a touchdown, something like that. Um, hasn't broke 1,000 yards yet, and he's going to be going up again. Look, he's going to get compared side by side with Marvin Harrison Jr. when it comes to that from a pass catcher standpoint. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will probably accumulate more stats than Bowers because Ohio State's offense is predicated on getting the ball outside to guys like that more so than Georgia is just focusing on, okay, let's feed Brock Bowers. So I think Beck, if they drop back enough, I think he can get the stats because the wins are going to come.
Seems like it. I would argue Carson as well. If he's the starting quarterback and he can approach what Stetson did a season ago, throwing it, which I think he certainly can. I think the challenge, Matt, when you're talking about Brock Bowers, and I watched the Carolina Georgia game from 22 just now earlier this morning because I guess I have nothing else to do, which is insane. It was just on. You know how that goes. The thing about Brock Bowers, he just he's very sudden. I mean, his production 56 receptions for 882 and 21, 63 for 942 and 22, 7 touchdowns, 20 total in the last 2 years, and then another 4 rushing it. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. I just wonder if we're talking about Heisman, can he keep up with what Caleb Williams is doing? Nevertheless, Ohio State's wide receivers, plural.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. But in my opinion, if we're talking about best player on the field, it's rare that it's not Brock Bowers. I mean, every time they get him the ball, good things happen. I think he may have missed one block last year that Kendall Milton I think got hit in the backfield. But as far as what did this guy not do correctly, it's hard to think of something. And the big plays, the guy's a touchdown machine. He's a vertical threat. He's great in the screen game. He breaks tackles after the catch. He's fast linebackers and defensive backs. The play he made fourth down against Ohio State was monumental. I mean, it's the little things that he does well, but he does everything well. So if we're doing the whole who's the best player in college football, he's right up there with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams, in my opinion. But like you both said, it's going to be tough for him to get the numbers, get the stats, because we know Caleb Williams will, Carson Beck could, Marvin Harrison Jr. will. So from that perspective, it is. But I still think he's arguably the best player in college football, and I think he will be a college football Hall of Famer, especially if they win 3 straight championships and he's there for each one and makes plays every time. So I'm a big Brock Bowers guy ever since I watched his high school stats and always thought he had this type of potential. He's more than a tight end, and I think everyone knows that. But like you said, it's going to be tough for him to have a real Heisman type of year.
I think I really like the way you put it. I can't think of a single play where I was like, wow, he should have done that, or he missed that, or has he ever dropped a ball? Like, I don't know. It is weird when you watch a player like that make so few errors. He is the best player on the field almost every single time he steps on it. But I don't think I just don't think that there's going to be a push for that. Maybe there is. Maybe they feel they need to rely on him more this season. I don't think so. They just have too many weapons on offense. They're going to spread it out. They don't care about Brock Bowers winning the Heisman at the end of the day.
Make sure you're picking up our newsletter. It's right down below. There's going to be exclusive things on there, giveaways, offers. The link is down below. It doesn't cost anything to join. It's the only link down there. Be certain, because you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. There's an article today, not from any of us, about recruiting, the difference between recruiting in terms of finances and so forth between Mark Richt's time at Georgia and Kirby Smart. So don't miss out on that. That link is down below. I wonder. Well, you discussed Herschel, which I think, first of all, Herschel likely should have won it twice. But George Rogers won it in '80, and I don't want to get into all. I mean, Herschel was, to me, the best player in college football for 3 years in a row, and there were some really good players back then. John Elway was there, and was very good for Stanford. You had George Rogers. So there were some superb. Bo Jackson was there, I think only in '82 though. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. There were some significant players in the early '80s, and Herschel was the best player on the field. But the award, y'all, over time has just become a quarterback award, basically. Who is the best quarterback? Trevor Lawrence never won a Heisman Trophy. Deshaun Watson never won a Heisman Trophy. Those are, and probably in 16, Matt, Lamar Jackson was the better individual quarterback player, or whatever you want to call it. So I understand that vote. That's why I voted that way, as I recall. But just because you're the best player, perhaps, in college football, or best quarterback, doesn't mean you necessarily win. I'm trying to remember why I voted Caleb Williams won. And I think it was just he was spectacular, except the Pac-12 championship game where he got injured. I mean, the guy, you can't deny the output and the production, Matt. And that's the thing about the Heisman is it really is who is the most productive quarterback, not the best quarterback, not the best quarterback on the best team. It's or the quarterback on the best team. We've done that too, but anymore. For a while now, it's been who is the most productive quarterback on a pretty good team, RG3.
Yeah. And occasionally you'll have a Devonta Smith, Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. All three of them went to Alabama. I'm trying to think of the last non-quarterback that didn't play at Alabama to win the award. Was it it can't be Ron Dane at Wisconsin, right? I mean, that's something I guess.
I'll look it up.
But there used to be more running backs, I feel like, winning. Ricky Williams, I think, won it, back then too.
Reggie Bush back in the day. But go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the answer to that.
Yeah, but you're right. I think the quarterback puts up, the big numbers now, especially in an era of college football. A lot of players, especially if you play under Lincoln Riley, you're going to be able to get those numbers. And at Alabama, where, they have found a way to score lots of points just about year after year. And they've had several, outstanding quarterbacks come through. So it's a numbers award too. It's a talent award, but you also have to win. You have to play at more often than not, play at a program that is still competing.
Oh, Matt froze. Let me take it from there though, Ryan, real quick. I don't know what happened with Matt's, but he'll jump back on in a second. The most recent person that was not a quarterback or an Alabama player to win the Heisman was Reggie Bush in 2004. He's the only person that has not been that category, either quarterback or Alabama player. Matt, you froze. Go ahead. Maybe Matt's way behind here on buffering. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of a moments award. You look back, people usually had their signature game, their signature moment. I always love the 2015 example where Leonard Fournette, he's in the lead for a lot of the season, and then Derrick Henry, LSU and Alabama play. Derrick Henry has his Heisman moment that day when they run all over him. Devontae Smith had his moments. Caleb Williams never had a true moment.
But he had 4,000. But he had 4,000 some odd.
But he had So it's a combination of that. The numbers. If you just compare the numbers to the quarterbacks the last handful of years to 10, 20 years ago, the numbers are better. And you've got to offenses have changed. I mean, you've got to throw for 4,000 yards almost.
Well,
And
in the 90s, you had, I'm just trying to see here real quick, one, two, three, four quarterbacks, multiple running backs, looks like 3 running backs, a receiver, and a DB. And you didn't, in the 2000, in this century, I think we probably had 15. I'm just going just a very quick list here. We've had 15 or 16 quarterbacks and a couple of running backs. Not many. I mean, you've had, Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and Devonta Smith. So 4 of the 22 have been non-quarterbacks. I mean, it's a quarterback award. It's what it's become. So I think, but back to the whole thing with Carson, if he performs the way that I think he can, he'll be in New York. They're going to score a lot of points. People forget how good Mike Bobo's offenses were, particularly in the later part of his time when he had more talent. Or when he had talent. When he had talent, they scored. When they didn't have talent, not so much, Matt. But I think it's pretty much a quarterback award. That's why I would suggest. That it's Carson Beck.